Welcome to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. I'm Richie. I'm going to be your host. Throughout the series, we're going to talk to a range of different people who will give you tools and tips to help manage your recovery. The podcast itself is being brought to you by Epic Restart Foundation, who are a national charity who support people to rebuild a positive life after gambling harm. So this week, we are back for part 2 with Ben, but this week we're also joined by Anthony. So Anthony is Ben's partner, and some of the stuff that you spoke about in the last episode, Ben, I just thought it'd be really good to have a conversation with you both around your experiences together, and then, you know, your experience as well, Anthony, because I understand that you've been through a lot of shit by being in a relationship with Ben, and that's not being detrimental to Ben. That's just the situation that he found himself in, you know, and a few other things that you mentioned in the last episode, Ben. If you haven't watched the last episode, go and watch the last episode. But a few other things that you mentioned were, you know, that fear around LGBTQ, the CGS system, the process you were going through, and then like all that sort of stuff. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Anthony, because we've heard about Ben in the last one. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you ended up being on here. Obviously, I've just said that you're Ben's partner, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Anthony, and we met on Tinder, didn't we? So we both swiped right, and we got chatting for a bit, and we just sort of connected straight away, didn't we, really? And then it kind of progressed from chatting on Tinder to then we exchanged numbers, chatting on WhatsApp, then it went from voice notes to video notes, and we kind of were starting to develop a real connection pretty quickly. And then I think it was on one video call one night, wasn't it? We kind of had a conversation where you kind of explained, you know, this is what's happening with me, this is what's happened. I want to be honest and open, and, you know, I understand that you might want to take some time to have a think about what I've just told you. And it was a bit of a shock. I think partly because of the work I work in a very similar industry to what Ben worked in. So the thought of, well, how could somebody do that kind of thing? You know, that was my first initial response of, well, I would never do anything like that, or wouldn't necessarily maybe associate with someone who would do that, because it would be completely against sort of what I believe and would stand by. So I took some time. I went and saw my friends, and we had a bit of an emergency therapy session where we kind of explained, you know, I'm really getting on with this guy. They all knew about Ben anyway from our conversations, and he's told me this, and, you know, what do you think? Because my head's just a bit, gosh, not sure what to think about that.
So the only question that comes to my mind straight away is, why didn't you run away then?
We got on really well, and at that point I'd kind of got to know Ben for Ben. And when I stood back and thought about it, I thought, well, you know, we're all one bad choice or bad decision from our lives going in a completely different direction. And we're not our mistakes. We're not our decisions. There's much more to us than, you know, what you might see. And I knew there was more to Ben.
Yeah. I love that reply, by the way. It's testament to yourself, I think, because what lay ahead was a very roller coaster of a ride, I would imagine. There's obviously, you know, in a gay relationship as well. How do you think that link to gambling harm, Ben, through your experience? Because we know that there's actually those who are in gay relationships are more at risk of gambling harm. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the LGBTQ plus community is, through research, massively higher at risk of gambling harm. And that's just through sort of, you know, a lot of intersectional sort of discrimination that could have happened before, something we call sort of minority stresses, which increases anxiety. So coming out to your parents or to people that are closest to you, transitioning, you know, if you're part of the trans community, if you're non-binary, exploring sort of sexuality, again, that sort of discrimination and abuse that you can experience pushes people into sort of gambling. And it's that escapism, the isolation that pushes people into sort of gambling. And it's so easily accessibly done now, where it's obviously on your mobile phone at your hand, that it becomes, I guess, for most people, but especially for the LGBTQ community, it becomes a friend that doesn't answer back. You know, it's the crutch that you didn't know you needed, which then turns into a problem. So yeah, being a part of the community for LGBTQ plus, I see a lot of people that gamble. I mean, that's how my gambling started. For me, was I went to a gay bar at the age of 17, first time, and I felt included in something. You know, I felt, oh God, you know, I'm a part of something. And everyone said, let's go to the casino, because the club had closed. And I got into the casino underage, I think just because that's what they all did, you know, all the people who went. And that was where it all began for me, because I didn't want to say no, because I didn't want to feel outcasted when I've only just been included. So, yeah, high prevalence.
I think also that links with a lot of stuff that I see is people who struggle with their identity, people who struggle with who their authentic self is, find coping strategies to mask, to, you know, we talk about that with neurodiversity and stuff as well. There's a massive link there. But I think you know, all of that is very similar, isn't it? It's about masking, it's about hiding that truth person. Yeah. And I think what we try and do at Epic is actually help people become their authentic self. Yeah. Stand in your own two shoes and be you. And it doesn't matter what anyone else says. Like, if you can be comfortable in that, then you've got strength and power from within. And my mum watches the podcast and she goes off it because I swear all the time. But I'll go, it's okay because that's me. Yeah. And if I didn't swear, there'd be more of a problem than if I do swear, you know, and that's not because of any other reason, but my mum doesn't like swearing. But that's fine. And that's her. And this is me. You know, and I see that my mum will watch this and she'll say, I can't believe you spoke about us. But that's the reality. Like, helping people become their authentic self is so important, isn't it?
100%.
And if I come back to you, when Ben told you and you had this little group therapy session with your pals, what was the next steps for you? Like, what went on for you? Was it discovery, trying to find out more about it? How did you handle that?
I think there was a lot of questions asked, wasn't there? And kind of, how are things for you? And then I was conscious of maybe things that I might say that might be triggers, or so we just had an open conversation. You know what Ben's like, he's very open and he chats anyway. So it was kind of lengthy conversations and trying to understand, gosh, that must be really difficult for him, what he's been through, you know, the loss of his job that he'd worked so hard for, the loss of friends, family. And I think I really kind of empathized with him just on that, rather than not necessarily just the connection that we developed, but just as a person, you know, you don't want anyone to kind of go through that sort of hardship or downtime or, you know, the sort of dark times that you had. You don't wish that on anybody. So we kind of connected on that level as well, which made our personal connection a bit deeper, I think, really.
Yeah. And you, Ben, in that first disclosure, what was that like to do with this new relationship on the scene? And
antagonizing, to say the least, because obviously there's no right or when do you declare this to somebody that actually, do you know what, I'm in recovery from an extensive experience of gambling harm, but on top of that, I could actually go to prison at some point in the future. So there's that twofold element for me, that even just telling someone you're in recovery, for some reason, there's still a huge stigma attached to that. You know, how will that person react? Instantly, they're probably going to not trust you because of behaviours and things that you've done in the past. And then to add the criminal, like I said, the criminal justice and potentially going to prison was hard. And it's almost walls up in case you're going to get rejected, you know. And we had built up that connection for a little bit. And what I used to do was, I remember it, drop little hints in around recovery. And then I used to say, oh, you know, well, I've got this police thing going on. And that's what do you remember I used to say, I've got this police thing. And I remember one night, it was when you went, what is this police thing? Like, tell me what this police thing is you keep talking about. And then I just thought, right, come out with it. There we go. And that's when you went away and spoke to sort of your friends, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt all kind of emotion because, again, for me, it's that control. You know, I'm now not in control of the destiny here of what could happen. You know, you could turn around and say, no, this isn't for me. Off you go. And that just enhances and reinforces what society is telling you about addiction and people that have been through the criminal justice system, is when you constantly keep getting rejection, that actually society's views are right and actually they're not right. And that's why you are one for me, a beacon of hope for so many other people, to actually be like, just take a chance on someone and look beyond the label, look beyond what people have been through, what you said. So
the thing is, what I saw when I saw honesty, because you told me about what had happened. So I didn't necessarily focus on what he'd done. I focused on, well, that's a good quality, honesty, and that's really important to me, and he's been honest. And at that point, you were living with your auntie and looking after her, which was quite selfless, because that's quite a big thing to look after someone else. So you can see the behaviours, but you actually look at the qualities that drive them, to be honest. And that's why I kind of focused on that as well.
And I love that, isn't it? It's like, we've all got a story. We've all got shit. We've all done stuff that we're not proud of. But actually, it's about, can I say the quality? And I think, testament to you, Ben, here, I think that relationship would never have worked had he not seen the action. Had you not seen that behaviour playing out. And words are words, but they mean jack shit.
Yeah.
They mean absolutely nothing. In life, words mean nothing. Action means everything, And we can definitely early in recovery, early in relationships, we can get drawn into the guys who've got the silver tongue and can, they can talk the talk. But actually acting it out is very different. And I'm guessing, Anthony, that's what you were seeing when you talk about some of that stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
What was the big doubt for you, Ben? Or can I rephrase that? Did you tell Anthony already with the idea in your head that that's the end of it, or not? Or did you have hope?
No, I did have hope. Hope with preparing that, okay, this could go wrong. It's just the fear as well. Like I said, when you like someone, first start talking, it's a sense of normality. So once you've been in recovery and you've lost everything and everything that you've been through, and start to then have the building blocks, I always say lay the foundation of the house before you can move in. And I'd done the foundation building and I'd started to put a sort of the brickwork up and the front door and windows, and a part of that is getting into a relationship. I never would have got into a relationship if I wasn't ready from a recovery perspective, if I didn't feel strong enough, or if it was going to have any implications on the other person. But that's, I guess, one thing that I didn't think of was I haven't gambled for 4 years when we met. For 4 years, I'm in solid recovery, everything's good. And I don't think I brought into actually the impact of the criminal justice system and the legacy harms, because in effect, you've become an affected other of my gambling. Even though I hadn't gambled for 4 years at that point, you've now become an affected other through, I'll let you explain later, all sorts of stuff that was going on whilst I was in prison for you. But I didn't really think about that at the time. It was just in the present, in the now. And part of me thought, God, I've been going through this police investigation for 3-4 years. Is it actually ever going to happen? How long do you put not your life on hold for? Because I was doing a lot proactively, but, actually moving forward in a relationship and having that normality was important.
And when you actually got together, and decided that actually, I'm going to stand by Ben through this, was there a date set at that point or not? Or was it still a lot of unknown? A lot of unknown. And
I think that's why it was kind of in the back of our heads, because at that point it'd been going on a few years for Ben. So it was always that thing that was in the distance.
Yeah.
And because Ben was so upbeat, we were still going out and doing things on the weekends and making sort of short-term plans. It kind of felt like it was just never going to happen. So I can only imagine what it was like for you. But from my perspective, I thought, he's told me this, but nothing's going to happen, really, to be honest.
And I think that was the hardest thing, I think, when it did come, is because we'd got together, we spoke about it, we've accepted it, you've accepted it, we're moving now through this together, this journey, very different ways, but we're moving through it together. And when it hit, the one advice I would give to other people in this situation is set aside some time and talk about what's potentially going to happen. Don't let it all become all consuming and take over. But we just thought of, brushed it under the carpet, was in the present. We were having a great time. don't get me wrong, we were in London and here, there, and everywhere. We were having a whale of a time, and I don't think we really anticipated how hard that would hit us.
No, and I think we were almost perhaps trying to make up for the fact that, we might go to prison, so let's do everything now, whereas actually life could have still, and still will, potentially carry on after, but we weren't looking that far ahead, were we? We were kind of, let's get everything in now, because it's going to suddenly change once you were charged.
And Anthony, once Ben got that sentencing date, what was that like for you?
It suddenly became real. I think I could see the change in Ben. That sort of carefreeness and had gone, and there was worry, and there was frantic panicking to get everything in order, and the court day was just horrendous. We didn't sleep the night before. The day felt like a blur, and looking back at it now, I feel like I almost had a bit of PTSD from it. I found it very, very traumatic, the sentencing, and going home on my own afterwards was awful.
Yeah, and we talk about legacy harm of gambling, and Ben's just mentioned, this is a legacy harm of the gambling, but it's also a harm of the criminal justice system as well. Through that process, Anthony, have you had any support? Did you get any support from anywhere to help you with that?
Yeah, so kind of being with Ben, I'd been to a lot of his events and saw a lot of the people that he works with, and I've never met such a group of open, welcoming, non-judgmental people who all support each other. They were very welcoming of me. They always said, they obviously knew what was going on with the criminal justice thing, and they always said, if it happens or when it happens, we're always here for you. And I thought, that's nice, but maybe they're just saying that because I'm Ben's partner. And they really stuck to their word. When Ben went, people reached out weekly. They rang me. They always checked in. I've not met such amazing people, and that's everyone I've come across in this kind of space. They're a lovely, lovely bunch of people.
Yeah, and I say that because there's got to be other people out there who are going through something similar, and that might have a partner or a loved one, a son, a daughter who's going through the criminal justice system, might be gambling harm or not. But actually, what was the important things that you felt like you needed to help you get through that process as well?
I think to accept how things were affecting me. Normally, I'm the type of person that will just put the smile on and carry on and plod on, but I thought I can't do that through this easy, because it's not. It almost felt like a sense of grief.
Yeah.
And I feel a bit weird saying that, because obviously Ben's not dead, but he was ripped away from my life just like that. My life is supposed to carry on without him in it, and I felt like I was grieving.
Yeah.
Yet I still had a job, I still had my college studies I was doing, I still had everything else, and life still carried on, but at the same time I was stuck.
Yeah, and that makes total sense to me, by the way. I don't think that sounds strange at all. I think it's a normal human behaviour to grieve loss, and I think something that we don't talk about all that much actually is grieving loss of the coping strategy you used, so mine was gambling, drinking, drugs. But I grieved the loss of cocaine. I grieved the loss of gambling because I really struggled in my life without them things for a period of time, So to actually carry on, like you say, without your partner who you've built this relationship with, it's been built on honesty. It's been, you know what I mean? All of these things that we aspire to have in a relationship you've had, and then somebody's been ripped away. That is something to grieve. I don't think there's any shame in saying that. And I think that's an important message for people to hear, I believe, is actually you might grieve. You might grieve loss, because that's ultimately what's happening. That is the truth.
And I think perhaps I wasn't just grieving the fact that I'd lost him in that moment. I was almost grieving for, have I lost him in the future? Because now I don't know what our future looks like. Yeah. I'm not sure if we will recover from this, how we will recover. Will he survive prison? So I feel like I was grieving a lot of different things that I couldn't process in my mind all at the same time.
Yeah, and then I think what also happens is you then go back to a place of uncertainty again. You had this bit of certainty, then there was a bit of uncertainty, then you're back in this place of you get into the relationship, it's certain, you've got all that stuff you plan, and then all of a sudden goes off to prison, and then you let this big hand of uncertainty. How did you manage that uncertainty? That
was tough. And a lot of that came from, like we said, about, Ben being an LGBT person in prison, a lot of my worry and anxiety was for him and his welfare, and that feeling of feeling helpless, because I knew that whatever he was going through, there's not anything I could do really. And it took, 17 days for the first visit. So to go from living with someone, he'd not long moved in, we were seeing each other every day, to not seeing him for 17 days was really quite, I didn't know what I was going to walk into when I saw him, and I'm sure vice versa for him. On the phone calls, I'm thinking, I don't know who's listening on the phone. Is he? There was just so many different things going through my mind that I was just anxious and nervous all the time, which generally is not me as a person.
Yeah. What was that like for you, Ben?
It was, hard. I almost went in, like I say earlier, to that survival mode. And it's weird because I almost went into selfish mode as well. Like I said to you, didn't I, that everyone else is okay because you're not in prison. You've still got people around you. You've got support around you. And that was probably the wrong mentality to have. But I sort of couldn't worry about anyone else at that time. First going in, when we finally did have phone calls and visits and bits and pieces, it was all right. There was good days on the phone. There was bad days on the phone. I used you as a little bit of a sounding board at times, but like on the phone. And you probably come away and thought, God, why am I bothering? Like all these probably different emotions and feelings and things on there. But, it's something I look back on and say we got through it. And I think getting through that, we'll be able to sort of get through anything. It's hard because, again, I felt helpless. There's nothing I could have done in any way, shape or form to reassure you, support you. Everything's, make sure everything's okay. It was difficult in prison as well. If I said, oh, can you send this money and do this, etc., and then you'd question from a good place, well, what's this for? What's that for, etc. But when you're in there, it's almost like, can you just do this? Like, it's sort of hard to navigate. And I think we did lose connection whilst in prison. Naturally, we lost connection because, the visit hall's open. So when you did come and visit, it was almost that, yeah, you're right, bro. Like, wasn't it? It was almost, it couldn't be our authentic selves because of the risk of what would happen if I was to then go back to the wing and if somebody else seen that and it got out, it's just not worth it. So, we couldn't have any form of real connection apart from speaking on a phone and seeing you for an hour and a half once a week, which I guess subsequently has, impacted coming out and getting back together. I say getting back together, we weren't ever apart, but yeah.
It's like starting to build a relationship again, isn't it? And starting, and you've been on this journey and then it's all been wiped away. For you, Anthony, I imagine, and this might be completely wrong, this is me assuming, and I shouldn't assume, but I'm going to anyway. I bet you must have felt like a bit of a punch bag sometimes. Like, he's offloading. Where do I get that?
Yeah.
Is that what it was like a little bit?
Yeah. And obviously, as his partner, I wanted to be there for him. But at the same time, I thought it made me feel even worse because I couldn't really do anything apart from listen.
Yeah.
It was a strange time. And in a weird way, we've had this conversation where obviously Ben is a peer supporter and helps other people. So sometimes I would be looking to him on the phone to kind of be a peer supporter for me, even though his situation was the cause of the problem. So it was a strange thing to navigate.
And I said, didn't I, that like in that time, God, I couldn't have supported anyone.
No.
At that very early stages. So you were looking to me for support and I was looking for you to support, and there's no way you were getting it from me. And I think that all comes down to, again, the fundamentals, communication, talking, being clear with each other, wasn't it really?
Definitely. I think there's so much of that required. I think communication, we talk at Epic Restart, we have 4 pillars, resilience. Have we got the resilience to get through stuff? Coping strategies, self-care, self-love, self-esteem, confidence. Have we got the confidence to be able to manage whatever's put in front of us? And then the most important one, I think, is communication, relationships. How do we manage it? How do we communicate? How do we look after each other? And that kind of brings us on to my last question for both of you. So last time on the podcast, Ben, we always ask every guest, what is their 3 tools for recovery? And I'm going to ask you first, and then Anthony, I'm going to ask you as well. So you've got a little bit of time to think of what yours are. And Anthony, what I want you to do is think about what the 3 tools that you use in your journey that you've been on as well. So it might not be exactly the same as Ben's, but just have a little think. So Ben, coming to you first, what's the 3 things that are really important that you have in your life to manage?
So for me, the biggest one is connection initially, and whether that be through sort of peer support groups, friends, family, just knowing I'm not alone and that you don't have to do it alone, because a lot of the time that isolation is the start of, where problems can begin. So yeah, definitely connection and support. Self-belief, and you just touched on that sort of resilience to overcome. I think turning words into actions is huge for me, and something that I've demonstrated as you can do this. Set goals. At the end of the day, when you go to bed, think to yourself, how have I contributed towards the goals? And, it could be the smallest of step, but as long as you're moving forward, or staying still, not going backwards, even if you're standing still for that day and, you are working towards your goals, then great. So resilience, putting words into action, and community and connection.
Yeah, love it. Anthony, what's been 3 things that you've had to be really aware of to focus on to help you get through the journey that you've been on?
The first I'd probably to say is for anybody going through a similar situation is to maybe not be so hard on yourself sometimes and cut yourself some slack. As the person on the outside, your life has to continue. So you can't juggle everything and be okay. So the fact that you still get up every day, you still go to work, you're still there for that person, you're still driving down every weekend for your visits, you're doing a good job, you know?
And I love that, by the way. I think the world would be a better place if everybody learned how to show love, care and compassion to their self first and foremost.
I think I've definitely learned that.
Number 2.
Getting support and asking for the right support that suits you. I'm not somebody who would perhaps benefit from sitting in a group, but speaking to somebody one-on-one is beneficial for me. So kind of knowing what support works for you and not being afraid to ask for that is certainly definitely something that you should do.
Ask for help. Number 3.
And expectations. I think it's okay to say that things won't go back to being the same as they were, because of course they can't. They're going to go back to a new different. It doesn't mean to say that our relationship isn't going to continue to grow, but it's not the same. So stop thinking that it has to be the same. It doesn't have to be the same as long as you still get into where you're going. But it's going to be different for both of us, isn't it? We're both slightly changed people for different reasons through the experience. So it doesn't have to be how it was before.
Yeah, I love that. Expectations are huge, aren't they? Yeah. If we're able to manage our expectations, then, we've got a chance, I think. It's when we have these unrealistic expectations that we cannot meet, that we then don't feel like we're worthy, we don't feel like we're enough, we don't feel like we've got all that stuff. So I love them 3 things. And I think that's not just for you and your experience. I think them 3 things can ripple through anybody in life. It doesn't even have to be recovery. So, yeah. Do you know what it is, guys? I've absolutely loved having this conversation. I think it's opened up a new way of thinking for me around some stuff, but also about how actually can we go out and help support people in other ways as well. So, really appreciate you coming on, Anthony, and sharing so honestly and vulnerably. And Ben, thanks once again. It's been a pleasure to know you over the last 4 years, and just be proud of both of you for how far you have come.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. If you took something positive from it, then why not subscribe? If you or somebody you know has been suffering gambling-related harm, why not head over to our website where you can join our community? The link is in the show notes.